right, guys, we are joined by Todd Rich, head of content and education at IGUX US. Todd, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Oh, awesome. Phenomenal. The best. I've got both doses of the vaccine in me. I'm ready to get the hell out of the house.
All right, what'd you get?
I got Pfizer. You take what
Pfizer?
you can get. Yeah, you just whatever they're going to give you, take what you can get.
Where in the country are you?
I am in the mid. I'm in Chicago. I'm in the Midwest.
Okay, all right. In Detroit, we have excess vaccines, so I think you can actually sort of pick. Like they have so many openings that it's like, all right,
yeah.
This one's got the Pfizer, this one's got the Moderna. Sign up for what you want to.
Yeah, that's right now in Chicago. I actually had to go out to the suburbs. I was this close to making a run to Indiana or Michigan to get one because there was just too much demand in Illinois and not enough. But it's opened up. It's definitely opened up.
Okay. Awesome. Well, but before we dive into markets, can you just give us a little bit of your background and tell us a little bit about IG?
Oh, for real. One, I'm a former floor trader. I got my MBA out of UCLA back in the 90s and then took that diploma, chucked it in the trash can and stood on the trading floors for a decade here in Chicago. Came off the trading floors and went to work for the exchanges. Deutsche Börse, spent some time with Eurex, if you're familiar with futures, out of Frankfurt, Germany, a global exchange. Went to work for Boston Options Exchange, then the New York Stock Exchange for a number of years. Left the New York Stock Exchange for retail. Really took an interest in retail traders and ended up in what became E-Trade. Options House got bought by E-Trade and then left there as they sold E-Trade to Morgan Stanley. Now, over at IG, if you haven't heard of IG, it is a very large global brokerage out of London. Globally, Asia, Europe, really big in the foreign exchange markets, but offers access to everything. But in the United States, IG has had a small footprint with a little publication called Daily FX. And then it's also got Nadex, which is where I spend most of my time. And by the way, you're all retail traders. If you aren't familiar with Nadex, we're going to have to talk about that because it's a smaller exchange designed for retail traders. If you haven't, it's the premier binary options call spread knockouts exchange in the United States. And it offers access not just because I know everyone's going, oh, those guys are foreign exchange. IG is definitely foreign exchange, but IG has got a small RFED, a retail foreign exchange desk in the United States, but they just spent $1 billion and are buying
with a B.
Tastyworks.
With a B. Wait, hold on. Let's be dramatic, okay?
Billion.
Ready? Wait, hold on.
1 billion.
All right, what did you buy for $1 billion?
Tastyworks, Tasty Trade. You're probably familiar with them. It's the same crew, Tom Sosnoff. They built Thinkorswim, sold it to TD Ameritrade, went and built another retail brokerage with a media entity behind it as well, designed for. So you probably heard of Tasty. IG's making they're placing a stake in the ground. They're coming to the United States, and with the Tasty acquisition and Nadex. If you don't know Nadex, go to nadex.com. If you are looking for short-term price action, equity indices, commodities, which right now, I know you guys are talking about individual stocks, but the commodities, right? I mean, we're going into a season right now where gold and oil, if you're not taking a look at those markets, you're missing out. I mean, that's with inflation, interest rates, the Fed making policy changes, the economy recovering. It's those markets are ripe for volatility. And Nadex has got some, and you know what binary options are, by the way.
But you probably don't know it. I was going to actually say, can you explain how binary options work?
A binary option is just it's a yes or no question. Will gold be above 1780 in the next 2 hours? Or will it be above 1780 at the end of the day? Yes or no? Will crude oil finish the day above $62 a barrel? Yes or no? So you're probably familiar with yes or no. And our binary options, they're all $100 contracts. So everything it's throughout the day you can trade it. And since they're all small, they're for retail traders. You bet 20 to potentially make 80. You know what your risk is going into it. You know what you could potentially make. I bet 50 to make 50. It's always going to add up to 100. And the cool thing is you can trade out of them. Unlike the analogy I used before, but let's just go with oil. I like oil early in I'm going to take a look at oil. What it's been doing lately is it's been making a move over the European session and completely retracing during the US session. People could hate oil early in the day. Sell, 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 sell. But then when the US trader comes online, it's buy, 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 buy. You can actually trade these binary options back and forth throughout the day. I can not like oil. I could sell these binary options looking for them to head towards zero. And then at halftime, I know that it's going to come back, and start buying them back and then go long them. So trading those binary options. We also have knockouts and call spreads, which are, if you have options traders, I know you're going to talk about hedging a position tomorrow, which I think is slick. That's actually where I come from, is the equity options world. Okay. That's what I did at E-Trade. That's what I traded on the floor. I think it's fantastic to use options. But if you're not familiar with those concepts, you can get into these markets like crude oil or gold or foreign exchange markets or the indices, the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, the Russell 2000, the Dow Jones, and you can trade them, and they're predefined risk reward contracts. So you know what you could potentially make, you know what you could potentially lose. And if you have some of those surprises, which you were talking about earlier, you don't want to blow up because of our contracts are pretty small. Notionally, but because they're defined risk reward, everything's fully collateralized. There's never a margin call. You can never lose more than what you initially put into the trade.
And a question that's coming out of the chat about those that I think is interesting. Is it peer-to-peer trading? Is there a market maker involved? How exactly does that work?
We definitely have market makers to keep the screens lit.
Okay.
But we are a proper exchange. We're regulated by the CFTC for our binary options, call spreads, knockouts. So we have the same rules and regulations, say, that the CME have, or that ICE, who owns the New York Stock Exchange, has. We have market makers lighting up the screen, but we have a central limit order book. So if I want to put a bid between the bid-ask spread or an offer between, I can. I can expose my order to the market. Someone might want to trade with me. So and there's a depth of view book as well, but it's anyone can trade with anyone. I could put a bid below or in between. I could put an offer above or in between.
Okay.
So and volumes have been off the hook. I mean, we have absolutely exploded with retail traders coming into the markets. We've had a ton of retail traders, particularly new folks, because the defined risk reward. If you wanted to try and test out some of these markets, you want to try to trade. If you're swinging around some of these stocks that can be so volatile that can wipe you out or blow you up, the fact that you know exactly what you're getting into at Nadex is kind of slick.
Okay,
it's really kind of slick. You should check them out. And I will say, by the way, I want to put a little plug in. If you don't know, go to nadex.com and check it out. But if you've never traded any of these things before, it's just kind of ironic.
I've done it. It's actually pretty fun. I don't know.
It's fun. It's the adrenaline on it.
Pretty damn fun.
A blast. But we're running a boot camp a week from tomorrow for trading gold and oil, because that's actually what traders are looking at right now. It's those products, supply demand on the economic recovery, interest rates and inflation on gold. These markets are hot.
So you gave us a tip of what to look at with oil, right? You said we're seeing Europe sell it, and then U.S. traders buy it up. Anything like that we should be paying attention to for the gold market, or for people who aren't deep in the gold market, like, hey, here's where I can start looking.
So gold is a proxy for inflation. So pay attention to gold on Wednesday. We're going to hear what the Fed has to say, right? They're coming out with their FOMC statement. I doubt they're going to move interest rates anywhere off of 0.25%. There's no way they're changing anything. But their vernacular might change. If you're not familiar with it, the Fed has a mandate to try to keep inflation around 2%. And they've tried to spur inflation, actually, so they can even, I mean, we got interest rates at the lowest they've ever been. And they haven't been able to see that. Now that the economy is firing up, we're actually starting to see some inflation. Powell went on 60 Minutes a couple of weeks ago. Jay Powell said he's prepared to let the economy run hot for a little bit and overshoot it. So what does that mean? If we're running at 2.5%, 3%, will he let it run that way for a little while? But people are measuring inflation now. They're looking at 4%. We might be running hot. And in that regard, that would drive the price of gold higher. So things to be looking at, right? Because whenever you have inflation, it's all these assets are going to start going up in price. And gold also, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out against a lot of this crypto stuff, because a lot of the younger generation have put their some of those store of value assets into cryptocurrencies. And, as those, if that bubble starts to pop a little bit, or some of the gas comes out, people could end up flooding back into the store of value that's been there for thousands of years, namely gold.
Yep.
Right. It's a precious metal, limited quantity, and it's shiny.
An interesting space. And guys, I dropped the link to the boot camp, the how to trade gold and oil that Todd was talking about in the chat. So if you want to join that, link is there for your viewing pleasure.
So I by the way, I love Young Investor. That's just fantastic.
I know, isn't he the best?
You know what? When
it does not get any better than that.
No, I'm going to give you a personal story here. I've got two sons. One's about to graduate from Northwestern. The other one's a freshman down at Tulane. When they were first born, my parents gave me a few $100s to help out with the crib, and my father-in-law gave whatever. So I had a little bit of money. I matched it and I put it in accounts for each of the kids and just threw it into a fund and let it grow for a bit. But when they were about 8 or 9, I introduced them like, hey guys, you've got a little bit of money, and I explained the stock market and how you invest, and we reallocated those funds, and it's trade what you know. And they discussed it, talked it over, and eventually we reallocated that out into, well, what would a 8-year-old boy want to invest in? So it was Coca-Cola, Disney. Okay. I loved it. I mean, the light bulb went on. They get the concept. They really do. If you talk to them about it, I thought it was fascinating because at the time too, my older son noticed that a lot of people smoke. And so a piece of it went into Philip Morris.
There you go. All right. 8 years old, starting him off young. I like it.
But he's not going to smoke. But they had the wisdom and the foresight to see it. They got it. So I love to see Young Investor out there doing it because let's face it, how else are you going to build wealth?
Exactly.
So
cool.
But there are more than just stocks. Taking a look at some of the commodity markets, foreign exchange, really hot. But then you can also always, the equity indices, particularly as people start to see rotations a little bit. If we get an economic recovery, the NASDAQ might not perform as well as some of the blue chips. We've seen that rotation a bit.
Yep.
Right. So
absolutely.
All sorts of opportunity. All right,
guys. I'm dropping the link to the how to trade gold and oil boot camp in there again, so you can go hang out with Todd. Todd, we appreciate you for coming on and hanging out with us today.
Oh man, it's been a blast. Love being here. I hope we can come back and talk about all sorts of other fun stuff.
Boom. I love it. I like that oil tip again. That's Europe's been selling, US has been buying. All right. It gives me something to go off of.
We call them parabolic retracements. It's like makes an emotional move. And whether it's an emotional move up, it's just been, then it comes right back down. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. So keep an eye on it.
All right. I'm going to keep an eye. Thanks, Todd.
All right. Excellent. Thanks.
All right, guys.